You wake up, you reach for a bowl, cereal, milk, maybe coffee. It takes you 4 minutes, start to finish, but for almost all of human history, breakfast didn't look anything like this. In fact, for most of your ancestors, breakfast didn't exist at all. Not as a meal, not as a ritual, not as something eaten at a fixed hour in a fixed place before the day began. The idea that you should eat something small and easy the moment you wake up is, in evolutionary terms, brand new. Strange, right? To understand what your ancestors actually ate when the sun came up, you have to leave behind almost everything you assume about food. No plates, no stoves, no guaranteed meals. Just a body, a landscape, and constant uncertainty about whether today would bring anything to eat at all. Start 2 million years ago. Your ancestors are not yet fully human. They are foraging primates, walking upright, but still deeply shaped by the diet of the forest. Anthropologist Catherine Milton spent years studying primate feeding behavior, and her research pointed to something important. Early hominins likely grazed almost constantly, small amounts of food spread across the entire day. Not 3 meals, not one big breakfast, a slow trickle of calories from whatever the landscape offered. Fruit when it was in season, leaves when it wasn't. Insects, roots, the occasional scavenged carcass. There was no clock telling your ancestors when to eat. Hunger told them, and hunger, in that world, was almost always present. Now, fast forward. Around 1.8 million years ago, something changes. Your ancestors start controlling fire. Primatologist and biological anthropologist Richard Wrangham built an entire theory around this moment, arguing that cooked food didn't just make meals tastier, it transformed human biology itself. Cooking breaks down tough plant fibers and unlocks more calories from the same amount of food. It makes meat easier to chew and digest. Suddenly, less time is spent foraging and chewing, and more time is available for everything else. Wrangham's hypothesis suggests this shift is part of why your brain, an organ that burns enormous amounts of energy, was able to grow as large as it did. But even with fire, there was still no breakfast in the way you think of it. Meals happened when food was available, not when a clock said it was morning. If a hunt succeeded the night before, the group might eat well before dawn. If it failed, the first food of the day might not arrive until well into the afternoon, or not at all. Here's where it gets stranger. For decades, anthropologists have studied groups like the Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last populations on Earth still living a foraging lifestyle. Anthropologist Frank Marlowe spent years documenting their daily patterns, and what he found challenges almost everything about the modern meal schedule. The Hadza don't eat first thing in the morning out of habit. They often wait. Foraging starts sometimes for hours before the first food of the day is eaten. Breakfast, if it happens at all, is whatever is found along the way. A few berries, some tubers dug from the ground, baobab fruit cracked open and eaten on the spot. Think about that for a second. No cereal box, no fridge. The very first calories of the day, earned through hours of walking and searching, sometimes not consumed until midday. Your body, shaped by millions of years of that same uncertainty, still carries the wiring from that world. This is where the twist comes in. You might assume that skipping breakfast or eating whenever food happens to appear would feel unnatural, uncomfortable, wrong. But your body doesn't actually expect a meal within an hour of waking up. That expectation is cultural, not biological. The insulin sensitivity, the appetite hormones, the entire hormonal rhythm your body runs on evolved in an environment where food access was irregular and often delayed. Morning hunger, as intense as it can feel, was something your ancestors' bodies were built to tolerate, not immediately satisfy. So where did the modern idea of breakfast actually come from? Not evolution. History. For most of agricultural human history, after the shift to farming roughly 10,000 years ago, people still often ate 1 or 2 meals a day, frequently later in the morning or around midday, tied to the labor of farming rather than the moment of waking. The 3 meals a day structure, with breakfast as a defined first meal, solidified much later, shaped by industrialization, work schedules, and eventually, marketing. Cereal companies in the 20th century spent enormous effort convincing entire populations that breakfast was the most important meal of the day. It wasn't ancient wisdom. It was, in large part, advertising dressed up as biology. Does that mean breakfast is bad for you? Not necessarily. Modern nutrition science is genuinely mixed on the topic, and individual bodies respond differently to eating patterns.